In the 1950s, the CIA started to conduct mind control experiments. These experiments were not abstract think tanks, but intensive human experimentation. The code given to these experiments was MK Ultra. MK Ultra combined several government projects such as Project Chatter, Bluebird, and Artichoke. Chatter had been testing drugs during interrogations. Bluebird had been studying hypnosis. And Artichoke had tried to answer, can we control an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will and even against fundamental laws of nature such as self-preservation? These projects were driven out of a climate of fear, with genuine concern that the Chinese and Russians may have developed brainwashing techniques that could be used against American agents and POWs. It was out of this fear that the CIA partnered with Army and Naval Intelligence to start to fund these projects. They used front organisations to approach over 80 institutions and scientists. The testing was conducted in a number of sites across the USA, Canada, and the UK. There was extreme secrecy around MK Ultra, with the then CIA director, Alan Dulles, exempting it from financial controls, which effectively removed any real accountability. The CIA finance office was given simple instructions. Pay any cost blindly that is associated with this project. A lot of what we know about MK Ultra came from the work of John Marks. In 1977, he managed to get the CIA to release 20,000 pages of documents, confirming that they had spent 20 years conducting mind control experiments using electric shocks, hallucinogenic drugs, and other techniques. Often, these experiments were done without the victim's knowledge. John published a book about his investigations. The Allen Memorial Institute in Canada was one of the locations used. It was run by Dr. Cameron, who believed the mind was like a computer. He believed that memories could be reprogrammed or wiped. One of his patients was Linda MacDonald, who was just 26 when, suffering from depression, her family took her to Dr. Cameron. She was introduced to Dr. Cameron and treated with LSD and electric shock therapy. At the end of her treatment, she had no memory of the procedure or anything else before she was admitted. She had lost 26 years of memories. Dr. Cameron's approach was to regress patients to an infant state and then reprogram them. He would regress patients using massive amounts of electric shock, much greater in strength and frequency than ever before. Then he combined different drugs like LSD, PCP, and others. He would then try to reprogram using psychic driving, where patients would be forced to listen to recorded messages designed to make them think or act differently. Some messages were simple, like, pick up this piece of paper. Others were more complex. You need to think differently about your parents. Patients were forced to listen to these messages for days, sometimes weeks on end. Louis Weinstein was a dynamic, able man who was social, loved music, ran a business, and was a father of 3. He started to suffer from panic attacks in the mid-1950s, and he believed Dr. Cameron was the best person to help. At the end of his treatment, he emerged a shadow of his former self. He was regressed to the state of an infant. He now suffered from severe organic brain syndrome and had very little ability to cope with the world. He never worked again. During the treatment, Louis' family continued to trust the doctors. Beyond electric shock therapy and drug treatment, Louis was subject to sensory deprivation. He would be put in a cell. His hands would be encased in something so he couldn't feel. The cell would be dark, so he couldn't see. There would be constant noise, so he couldn't hear. Essentially, he was being cut off from all normal senses. On one occasion, Louis was kept in this situation for 2 whole months. After learning the truth, Louis' family filed a lawsuit for him and 7 other Canadians against the CIA and the Canadian government. The case was settled 8 years later. The CIA paid $760,000 for all 8 victims to share, an average of just $95,000 each. The MK Ultra program was scaled down in 1964, but not stopped until 1973. Beyond the actual experiments, what I find so shocking here is that these projects started essentially straight after the Nuremberg trials of 1940s, where the Nazis were prosecuted for their actions during World War II. Actions like human experimentation. We are capable of such terrible hypocrisy. I love the quote, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." What a different world it would be if all the good men and women stood against evils they knew or saw happening. Think about the impact this would have on those who are helpless, refugees, people who are trafficked, the homeless, those with mental illnesses. I encourage you to go out, stand up for those you know in such situations. I hope you found this thought-provoking. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe below. Thanks for watching.